This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Departing has taken the lead at the top of the stretch from Moonshine Mullen, who fights on to the inside. Golden Ticket and will take charges on the far outside. Oh, Moonshine Mullen's battling. Moonshine Mullen and Calvin Burrell with the rail in the lead. Close to home from Departing will take charge. And Golden Ticket, Moonshine Mullen did it!
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. I'm Mark Cassano. On this morning's show, we'll discuss the future sights for the Breeders' Cup. Our race of the week will be the Stephen Foster. You just saw a piece of that during the Open. And we will welcome in a trio of special guests. We will get caught up with Mr. Art Sherman, the trainer of California Chrome, and he's going to tell you about something rather unusual that he just got in the mail. Then we'll welcome in a pair of gentlemen with runners in this afternoon's Bed of Roses here in New York. Mr. Eddie Kenneally's got Street Girl and Ultimate Shopper, while Mr. Mark Hennig has Merry Meadow. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our June 21st edition of the program, which is being sponsored by Parting Glass Racing, Saratoga's original racing partnership. Visit them on the web at partingglassracing.com. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the first official show of summer. Hallelujah. The way winter was, I wasn't certain we were ever going to reach this point. Summer is short, so enjoy it. Have a wonderful time. Settle back, relax. We've got a good show for you this morning. I think you're going to enjoy listening to Art Sherman during our second segment. We begin this morning. The Louisville Courier-Journal reported earlier this week that the Breeders' Cup has decided upon the next three venues for racing's year-end event. In 2015, the Breeders' Cup will be held at Keeneland, the first time for that compact Lexington, Kentucky facility. In 2016, the Breeders' Cup will return to a very familiar track, Santa Anita, which means the Arcadia, California facility will have hosted the event for the fourth time in 5 years. And in 2017, Del Mar will host the Breeders' Cup for the very first time. And folks, it is not a coincidence that Del Mar and Keeneland are the latest tracks to go back to a dirt main track. So California continues to dominate Breeders' Cup venues. Now granted, the weather in early November is far better in Southern California, at least, odds-wise, it's far better in Southern California than it would be in Louisville, Kentucky, or in upstate New York. But with so much money on the line and championships on the line, I've got to tell you, just in my opinion, it is terribly unfair that California continues to dominate this. And the one horse I'm going to bring up, because off the top of my head, it's the only one I can think of to help my point here. But Beholder is a two-time champion. Both of her Breeders' Cups were in Southern California. Now, I'm not demeaning Beholder. I think she is a wonderful filly, but she's winless outside of California. Now, I know that's only two races. I understand that. But when you've got the hometown advantage, when you can walk out of your own stall and race, you know, there is so much of an advantage there. I do not believe that Naira applied for the Breeders' Cup, which means it'll be at least 13 years since New York has hosted a Breeders' Cup. And Calder Racecourse has canceled its 2014 Summit of Speed due to a pending racing dates deal with Gulfstream. Now, Gulfstream may run some of those races for reduced purses and without grading, which means the quality shippers which Calder has gotten over the years are highly unlikely to travel. And jockey Rosie Napravnik has been injured. Napravnik suffered a shoulder injury in a training accident last Sunday. She has a minor shoulder separation, which fortunately will not require surgery, but which will sideline her from 4 to 6 weeks. And one of the top mounts she will miss is Untappable, when that top 3-year-old filly goes in the June 28th Mother Goose at Belmont. Johnny Velasquez will ride the Steve Asmussen trainee that day, coming off a monstrous performance in the Kentucky Oaks. And owner Rick Porter has transferred Normandy Invasion, a poor 9th in the recent Met Mile, from Chad Brown to Larry Jones. Porter commented that Normandy Invasion may need a change of scenery and really hasn't had much luck with Brown. Now, Normandy Invasion began the year with that, authoritative allowance victory at Gulfstream. He ran very, very fast. Then he finished second to Palace Malice in the New Orleans Handicap, which, wasn't a bad effort. We're talking about Palace Malice, arguably the finest older horse in the country, but the Met Mile was just awful, and there really is no explanation for why he ran that poorly. And finally, in Saratoga, the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame has announced that E.P. Taylor and Colonel E.R. Bradley have been elected to the Hall of Fame in the category of Pillars of the Turf. Now, the Royal Ascot meet, and you can see a piece of it over my shoulder in our monitor shot, began earlier this week. The big race, the Prince of Wales' Stakes, and rallying on the right of your screen is the eventual winner, the Fugue. Second in last year's Breeders' Cup Turf, the Fugue handily defeated Magician, who had beaten her in last year's Breeders' Cup, and Trev, the ultra-impressive heroine of last year's Arc de Triomphe, but who is winless in 2 starts this year. Really nice effort by the Fugue, who is owned by music legend Andrew Lloyd Webber, trained by John Gosden, and was ridden by William Buick. Now, Frankie Dettori, who rode Trev, said his filly just wasn't right. Her action was short and choppy, and her trainer, Crooked Head, is mystified. I mean, Trev ran just a huge race in winning last year's Arc, but is 0 for 2 since. Congratulations to American trainer Wesley Ward. He won another 2-year-old race at Royal Ascot earlier this week, the Windsor Castle, with Hootenanny, who was ridden by Victor Espinoza. All right, race of the week, at least here in the States, was the Stephen Foster. Lukewarm favorite number 4, Will Take Charge, who went postward at the 2.5 to 1 choice, coming off an absolutely awful effort in the Ali Sheba in last. Second choice at 3 to 1 was number 6, Departing, who had run only once this year. And the third choice at 3.5 to 1, number 1, Revolutionary, who had rallied from far back to win the Pimlico Special in last. For the call of the Stephen Foster, here's Larry Colmus.
All in line, ready for the start. They're off in the Stephen Foster. And long shot Jaguar Paw goes at it with Moonshine Mullen for the early lead. These two, as expected, will make the early pace. And Departing and Golden Ticket are right there too, and Long River settles back in stride in 5th. Down toward the inside, it's My Loot. Prayer for Relief is next. Will Take Charge and Revolutionary will do their running later. There at the back of the field, Will Take Charge is 14 lengths off the lead, and Revolutionary 16 behind after a 23-4 opening quarter mile. Jaguar Paw leads them onto the backstretch, and Calvin Burrell takes hold of Moonshine Mullen second. Departing tracks the top two, third by another 2 lengths. Then Long River and Golden Ticket to the outside. My Loot is right alongside of Prayer for Relief, and Will Take Charge is being ridden along to get closer now. He's 14 lengths off the lead. Gary Stevens motivating him. Mike Smith and Revolutionary content to be last after a 47 4/2 mile. There's a half mile to go, and it's still Jaguar Paw and Moonshine Mullen, and Moonshine Mullen now takes the lead on the far turn, and Departing will take aim at him. Golden Ticket is after that. Long River, then Prayer for Relief. Will Take Charge is having to go on the far outside. He's within 5 lengths of the lead now. Revolutionary still at the back of the field, and My Loot's in it too. Departing has taken the lead at the top of the stretch from Moonshine Mullen, who fights on to the inside. Golden Ticket and Will Take Charge is on the far outside. Oh, Moonshine Mullen's battling. Moonshine Mullen and Calvin Burrell with the rail in the lead. Close to home from Departing. Will Take Charge and Golden Ticket. Moonshine Mullen did it!
Moonshine Mullen, for one of last week's guests, Randy Morse, Calvin Burrell up from a $40,000 claim to a Grade 1 winner, as he gamely turns back a bid from perfect Trip Departing, then has enough left to hold off Will Take Charge to win the Stephen Foster by a length and 3/4. Moonshine Mullen comfortably stalked long shot Jaguar Paw. And I think being comfortable was the key here. And when Calvin moved Moonshine Mullen to the front, Robbie Alvarado on Departing immediately came to him, and the battle was on. Moonshine Mullen would dig in gamely along the inside, repel Departing, but there was still the late bid from Will Take Charge for Moonshine Mullen to face. Well, the former claimer had enough left for that challenge as well, and went on to a pretty nice length and 3/4 score at 10-1. So, since Randy Morse claimed Moonshine Mullen for $40,000 last November, he has bankrolled $650,000 and has become a Grade 1 winner. That is some claim. 149.66 with the final 3/8 in 37.24. Now, while Wayne Lucas, the trainer of Will Take Charge, has already stated that they're looking at the $1.5 million Whitney, and remember, Will Take Charge ran so well at Saratoga last year. Morse has been non-committal about where Moonshine Mullen will show up next. I don't really think he wants to face Palace Malice at this point, but the lure of $1.5 million in the Whitney may be strong. What a claim. Congratulations to Randy Morse. That is some claim. Just my opinion here, I don't think Will Take Charge has been at the top of his game since the Santa Anita Handicap. Now, last year as a 3-year-old, you'll remember Will Take Charge improved during the second half of the year. He improved with racing and experience. That doesn't seem to be the pattern this year thus far, because while that was certainly a very respectable second, I don't think we've seen Will Take Charge at the top of his game for a while. And we are up to our first break on this June 21st edition of the show. Thank you so much for having joined us. When we return, Mr. Art Sherman, as we go to the break, the Shoemaker Mile last Saturday at Santa Anita. The 17-10 favorite, number 1, obviously. So we will take a look at the Shoemaker Mile to the break. Back with Art Sherman right after these messages.
And they're off. It was a clean beginning. Winning Prize breaks out beautifully, obviously on the inside, and Pulpits Express now goes up to make it 3 across the course. Silentio will settle nicely in 4th, about 5 lengths off the lead. Inside of him comes Summer Front. Jack Milton is unhurried, and Tom's Tribute is at the back. Into the first turn they go, and obviously is the leader. Winning Prize went a bit wide into that turn, as did Pulpits Express, but both of them get closer to the rail now. A gap of 6 back to Silentio, racing in 4th. Summer Front is 5th, more than 12 lengths off the lead now. Then it's Jack Milton, and at the back is Tom's Tribute. Down the back stretch they go, and obviously very comfortable up top, leads it by a length and a half to Winning Prize 2nd. Pulpits Express is trying to keep pace 3rd. A huge gap back to the 4th spot, and that's still held by Silentio. Then comes Summer Front inside Jack Milton. Tom's Tribute has trailed throughout. Obviously in control around the far turn. He leads it by 2.5 and starts to widen. Winning Prize is asked to get after him 2nd. Pulpits Express has surrendered. Then it's Silentio. Jack Milton is 9 lengths off the lead with the black cap. Summer Front inside of him, and then Tom's Tribute. They're at the top of the stretch, and obviously is still cruising along with a 5-length lead. The rest of them lining up to chase him home, but obviously is well clear. On the far outside, Tom's Tribute is trying to get involved. Silentio is inside of him, as is Summer Front, but with a 16th to go, it's obviously goes back-to-back in a dominant Shoemaker mile. Summer Front 2nd, photo for 3rd between Silentio and Tom's Tribute.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Cassano, and obviously where he likes to be on the front end for new trainer Philip D'Amato, Joe Talamo by a length and a half over Summer Front to win the Shoemaker. Now, I did not speak to the trainer, I read where they're considering running, obviously, only one more time before the Breeders' Cup Mile. The Breeders' Cup Mile is 20 weeks after the Shoemaker, so they really want a fresh horse going into the Breeders' Cup Mile. Art Sherman has obviously enjoyed a great ride in 2014. And yesterday when we had a chance to sit down and chat with him, Art was very relaxed, but he had some very interesting things to say about Victor Espinosa's ride in the Belmont, about something which he just recently received in the mail, and about where California Chrome may make his return. They're looking for one prep race before the Breeders' Cup Classic, but it might not be where you're thinking. We had some fun. So ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this interview with the trainer of California Chrome, Mr. Art Sherman. Art, Mark Cassano welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
How are you, Mark?
Good. How are you, Art?
Super.
You know, you've had a couple of weeks to kind of let things sink in. Was the Belmont loss terribly disappointing for you?
Well, you know, it's always terribly. I just was happy that my horse come back, not as hurt, or, you know, it could have been pretty serious. He kind of glanced off of one tendon and just took a little hide on him before he reached down and grabbed his quarter. You know, that could have been very serious if it could have been any bigger bruise into his area, but we got lucky. You know, they didn't have it, so it was real nice.
So, Art, overall, the injury was minor. Has it been healing very nicely?
Very nicely. I turned him out on Wednesday. He took about 8 days to heal it up really nice, and he's over there at the ranch right now and looks really good. They video me a tape of him every day. Just they were out there grazing in the grass. It was really he looked really good, to tell you the truth. He went right by his father's paddock, and I had a laugh because they were almost a spitting image of each other, and I laughed. They looked at each other like eyeball to eyeball, you know what I mean? And it was pretty cool. So he'll be home.
Well,
Right.
Well, Art, let's take a look back with our audience at the Belmont Stakes. As a reminder for our audience, California Chrome, number 2 in here. I'll get your thoughts on a number of things as we watch the Belmont, Art, but first, your thoughts on Victor's ride. Do you think the decision he made early on to take California Chrome back was costly in the long run?
I really do. You know, because he was in a switch down the backside. It kind of, they had him pocketed in. You know what I mean? And then with the injury that he had and the sand rubbing in that area, you know what I mean? If you could have maybe got him in the clear a little bit earlier and could have, I actually think he could have been right there with Commissioner. You know, with the way the race was run. You know, so.
Art, what did you and Victor talk about strategy-wise prior to the race?
Well, all I did, I usually don't talk strategy with him, you know what I mean? So many things can happen in a race, you know what I mean? And he knows the horse like the back of his hand. You know, he won 6 in a row. What kind of strategy really going? I know a mile and a half. I just let him do his own thing, you know what I mean? And it just, he's had such good luck with the horse. Every time he's run him, had him a perfect spot. So you were kind of due to have one of them races that it wasn't a perfect spot, you know what I mean? But, hey, listen, he had a hell of a run. We got our horse back in one piece. It's just one of them things that the Triple Crown is very demanding on a horse, you know what I mean? You got to have a super horse to run these 3 races in 5 weeks, it's just very demanding on a young horse.
Art, in retrospect, did the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown take a bit more out of California Chrome than you had initially thought?
Well, anytime you run back in 2 weeks, I don't usually run between 4 and 5 weeks to run him back once. And to run 3 races in 5 weeks is a lot to ask of any horse. I don't care who it is, you know what I mean? It's just... and then go a mile and a half, the last leg, you know what I mean? It was, I'm not making any excuses, you know what I mean? If they're good enough, he had every chance to win it. But I knew something was bothering him where he usually kicks it in up around the 8th pole. He started raising his head during the race, and I talked to my wife. I said, there's something bugging this horse, because I could see usually he drops his head and kicks in another gear. But he couldn't do that this time, But I didn't realize that he got hurt like he did either, you know what I mean? He was, his foot was bleeding pretty darn good when he come back.
You mentioned briefly earlier in the interview that he's at a farm. Give our audience an idea of what California Chrome's schedule is going to be, his daily schedule, over the next month and a half or 2 months.
Well, he's just going to be a horse, we can just back off and let him have R&R and let him build up, you know what I mean? It takes a while for a horse to get back. And, he went out there, he looked so darn good, even physically, he's a horse that bounces back, you know what I mean? He's remarkable demeanor on him, he's people's horse, he loves being around people and I'll have him back for the Breeders' Cup, and it'll be great. I'll have him about ready to run around that time.
Art, will it be difficult to let a horse like California Chrome down? I mean, he's been racing at the top level. Is it tough to take a horse like that and let him down?
Well, usually some horses, they would, they can put on a lot of weight on you. But they're gonna monitor his feed and everything to where you don't get over fat on me, fat inside, and then he might be on, they have a water tread that we could put him on like after 30 days and kind of keep him halfway fit and still, be away from the racetrack. So, I mean, the schedule looks really good for him, you know, and I'll go up and see him in 30 days just to make sure everything is looking good.
And as of right now, when is the plan to have him return to you and get back into training?
I would think sometime in August, middle of August. You know, I'm not sure what the plans are. I'd like to get a prep into him before the Breeders' Cup, and it might be at Los Alamitos. They're talking about even before Santa Anita starts, and maybe getting a race here and putting on a little overnight stake for him for 3-year-olds, you know, before he has to run against the nuts when the Breeders' Cup comes. I need to get a race into him.
Okay, because I was thinking the logical race on the schedule as far as a prep might be the Awesome again, unless they've changed that name again. But the Awesome again, but Los Alamitos is going to write a race for him?
Well, I'm only sure I could. You know, this is his home track, and everybody, God, it would break all the records if this horse could ever come here to race, I want to tell you. I don't know if the place would be big enough for the cars to come in.
Well, Art, I can imagine that one of the really cool things you were able to do in New York was you returned to your old neighborhood. Tell us about that.
That was pretty cool. You know what I mean? I had a laugh because when I pulled up in a big limo, and of course we had another car with the cameras and everything, and I started walking down the street. They thought it was some movies that they were making or something. And I'm walking around and saying, you know, trying to familiarize. The only thing I could think of, you know, because I left when I was 7 years old, was the fire escapes, you know, and I remember as a kid when it was warm weather, I used to sleep out there on the fire escape, you know. And I saw that building around where I was, you know, raised. And, of course, you know, the neighborhood's changed a little bit now, but it was good, you know. I mean, I had a good time.
That's terrific.
I enjoyed New York a lot, you know. It was a fun time.
Art, give us an idea of how much life has changed for you, you know, in that 4-month period since California Chrome burst upon the scene.
Well, you know, you go along and, you know, I was always, you know, okay success, but never had the really big horses or anything that would put me in. If you would have said at the beginning of the year that I was going to win the Santa Anita Derby, the Kentucky Derby, and the Preakness, I would have said, wow, you got to be kidding me, you know. But the horse got better, and he sure improved as a 3-year-old, you know, and I really think that the potential for, we keep him around as a 4-year-old, you're going to see a really nice handicapped horse next year. And I want to try him on the grass. I think he'd be an excellent grass horse, just the way he travels, you know, somewhere down the line. That's in the back of my mind.
So, Art, have the owners made the decision, as long as he stays healthy and sound, to definitely run him as a 4-year-old?
Well, they did, and they insured him for a lot of money. You're not going to pay the premiums, you know, and not race him. You know, it's pretty darn big.
Well, Art, it has been one heck of a ride for you. We are thrilled for you. You know, I go back, and I've told the audience this, really when the calendar year changed to 2014, California Chrome was the answer to the following trivia question. Who won the last stakes race in the history of Hollywood Park? Where you've come from that point to now is incredible. We had you on the show for the first time the morning of the San Felipe, and you told us, you know, I'm a little nervous because I got some friends and family coming. Art, you went from that to having the whole world follow you in California Chrome.
Yeah, he's really a popular. You know, I just thought this right now. They gave me a T-shirt for the opening day at Los Alamitos, and in the back of it's California Chrome, and it is a beautiful T-shirt. And they're giving away that T-shirt for opening day, so they, you know, it's been a big deal for California. You know, he's a rock star over here. In Beverly Hills, they had California Chrome Day up there, and they gave a big crystal horse's head to us, and it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? Everybody knows California Chrome, and actually they know me now. You know, I could go to a couple of restaurants where I wouldn't ever. And now they say, "Well, do you train California Chrome?" And I say, "Yeah, I do." And they say, "Oh, we love that horse." You know, so and the fan mail every day. I get maybe 10 or 15 letters every day come from people. And I had one guy have to send a check back. I just opened it yesterday, and I laughed because he sent me $150 for the vet bill to fix his foot up. I said, "Wow, look at this." I've never had that. You know what I mean? People, that's what I'm saying, what the popularity of this horse is.
Well, Art, you and your staff have done an incredible job. All congratulations on all of the successes. Thank you, as always, for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We have appreciated you coming on the show for the last 4 months. Have a good summer, relax a little bit, and then we'll talk to you when he's ready to come back in the fall.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Art. Art Sherman, ladies and gentlemen, the trainer of Derby and Preakness hero, California Chrome. Thanks so much to Art once again, and I'll tell you this, if California Chrome does make his comeback at Los Alamitos, I've been there twice. Once for quarter horse racing. I was the only male in the entire crowd without a cowboy hat and cowboy boots on, and once for harness racing. That's a small facility. They will be packed to the rafters if California Chrome comes back at Los Alamitos, but it'll be fun to see. And we are up to our next break. When we return, Mr. Eddie Kenneally will join us. As we go to this break, every year about this time, we begin looking, for those late blooming 3-year-olds who can become major players in the division over the second half of the year. Well, last weekend at Monmouth, they ran the Pegasus, and maybe we saw a player come out of this race. So we'll take a look at the Pegasus to the break. Back with Eddie Kenneally right after these messages.
In the gate. And they're off in the Pegasus. An Encryption right to the top. Ring Weekend off sharp 2. And on their outside, Albano's up to be third. So they race for the clubhouse turn. Paco Lopez and Encryption joined by Ring Weekend. These two hook up early. They move into that turn together. Albano tucks in behind, settles nicely from third. Lynx is fourth. Wildcat Pleasures at the back in fifth. Up top, Ring Weekend to the top now. Encryption right there, though, and these two have sprinted 5 lengths ahead of the rest. And they throw down a quarter in 22 and 4. So Ring Weekend into the bit to the back stretch run. Strides away to lead by 3. Encryption is back in second. Albano coasts along from third, about 5 lengths behind. Pace setting Ring Weekend. 5 more lengths back to Lynx and Wildcat Pleasures as they move down the back stretch run. So it is Ring Weekend after that strong quarter in 22 and change. Goes a half in 46 and 2. There's a half mile to go. So Ring Weekend, unopposed so far, had to run hard to get up there though. Encryption is second and coming on, and Albano is picking it up 3 wide on the outside in third. 3 more lengths back to Lynx, who's trying to wind up from fourth. 5 back, Wildcat Pleasures round the far turn. Albano takes the lead. Albano just like that to the top outside the quarter pole. And Encryption's going to try and move with Albano. Ring Weekend is retreating through the field. Lynx on the outside has taken over third. They're at the top of the stretch, and Albano's in front by 5. Encryption back in second. Lynx is third. The rest are struggling. Furlong to go. And Albano with a 6-length lead by the 16th pole. And Albano's going to roll home a much the best winner of the Pegasus. Geared down under the wire. Encryption a clear second. Lynx was third. Wildcat Pleasures finished fourth.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
The big day is here. You've told everybody. You've dressed the part. Your heart is pounding in your chest. Your horse is rolling down the stretch. He's coming. He's closing. He's Racing. PartingGlassRacing.com. PartingGlassRacing.wow.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano, and Albano in his first start since the Louisiana Derby for Larry Jones and Kerwin Clark romps in the Pegasus by 6.5 over Encryption. Our next guest will, later on this afternoon in New York, will saddle the pair of Street Girl and Ultimate Shopper for the Bed of Roses. We welcome in live via telephone Mr. Eddie Kenneally. Eddie, Mark Casano welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Eddie, let's begin with Street Girl. When did she come to you, and what were your first impressions of her?
Well, she was purchased at the Keeneland November sale last November. She had a pretty good resume. She had just ran in the Breeders' Cup. Prior to that, she had finished fourth in the Ballerina. She was third in the Cotillion. So she had some good form. Black type filly with grade 1 placing. So they opted to buy her and keep her in training for a year and put her back in the sale again in November. And she's run a couple of times. Her last race was her best race for us. She was second in the grade 1 Humana Distaff on Derby Day at Churchill. So yeah, she's a filly that we're trying to enhance her value, and hopefully we can get a piece of this thing today.
And we will in a few minutes take a look at the Humana Distaff. But Eddie, she didn't race in Florida this winter. Any reason for that?
She probably needed a break this winter after a long campaign last year. So we just stopped on her and gave her some time at the farm and gave her a break, and then got her ready and ran her in allowance on the polytrack at Keeneland. That's probably not what she wants to do, but it benefited her, and she got some fitness from that, and then came right back and ran a good race in Churchill on the dirt.
Well, we are going to take a look at that very fine second in the Humana Distaff on Derby Day. For our audience, Street Girl is number 1 in here. I mean, Midnight Lucky ran a hole in the wind this day, but your filly ran awfully well. Talk about it, Eddie.
She sure did. The race on paper was loaded with speed, and we thought that there would be a lot of speed in there. And so we opted to just take back and make one run and try and get a piece of it. We were hoping to get, we didn't know that we could win it, but we were hoping we could get a piece of it. And they went maybe not as quickly as we had hoped for the first half mile. And our filly was fine where she was, back near the back, and just relaxed good for Le Peru and came with a nice run up the rail and ended up being second and beat a couple of very nice fillies.
You know, Eddie, Street Girl is fascinating from a handicapper's standpoint. She was a rallying and close fourth last year here at Saratoga, going 7/8 in the Ballerina. She was a rallying third, going 8.5 furlongs in the Cotillion. Since you've gotten her, what do you think her best distance is? Is she at her best as a closing sprinter?
I think a lot depends on the pace set up in races, but if there's a good pace at 7/8, I think that's probably what she's best at. I think she's best at one turn, even though she has some 2-turn races that are very good. I think her Ballerina run at 7/8 was a good rate, and the Humana Distaff at 7/8 was good. So I think probably sprinting 7/8 on the main track is probably what she's best at.
How did she come out of the Humana Distaff, and how's she been training for this afternoon's Bed of Roses?
Real well. I mean, we pinpointed this race after the Humana race because it's a 7/8 race, and we'd like to get her to the Ballerina again this year. So we're trying to just stick with that, and hopefully, she'll show up and run a big race today, which I think she will.
Well, there does appear to be some speed, at least on paper, for this afternoon's Bed of Roses. And one of those speed fillies is your other filly, Ultimate Shopper. Eddie, you had cross-entered her for the Bed of Roses this afternoon, as well as the Red Cross. tomorrow at 3/4 at Monmouth. Why'd you decide to run her this afternoon in the Bed of Roses?
I guess the main difference is the Bed of Roses is a graded race, and trying to get some graded black type for Ultimate Chopper, and she loves Belmont. That's another reason why we're running her in this race. She's 2 for 2 at 7/8 at Belmont, and she's running it only twice. So we wanted to give her an opportunity to run in a graded race at the track we know she likes. So she's very well meant in that race, and I think she'll run a big race today.
Well, here she is in her last start. This was a May 17th entry-level allowance at Belmont at 7/8 for our audience. Ultimate Chopper number 5. Eddie, talk about this performance if you would.
She's got a lot of natural speed, and she typically breaks sharp, and she's a filly that speed is her, that's her biggest asset. And she just kind of made a middle move in that race and ran some of those horses off their feet and kind of wrapped up the race in the middle of the turn. And, so I think that that's her running style. That's what she's going to probably do today. And certainly there's going to be a lot more pace pressure for her today. There's going to be several in there that'll want to run with her early. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I think that, that's her running style. We're not going to change anything, and we'll just see how it unfolds.
Eddie, she is very lightly raced. I mean, she is now a 4-year-old with only 4 starts. Why is that?
She just had a setback as a 2-year-old and didn't get to the racetrack at all at age 2, and got plenty of time to just mature and grow up. And then she just took a while to come together as a 3-year-old. So as it turned out, she just didn't make her first start until October of her 3-year-old year. But nothing major. She just had a few setbacks earlier on.
And how did she come out of this allowance win? How's she doing coming into the Bed of Roses?
Super. She's doing real well. She's had enough time to recover. The timing is also ideal for her. The positioning of this race here at Belmont today. So I think she's done well. She's had a few good works over the track and looks great. So, now she's going to run against a much better group of horses today. So we'll see how she gets along. But I think she's a quality filly, and I think she's in there with quite a good shot today.
Let's see if we can help our audience a little bit, because, Eddie, you've got a starter in this afternoon's grassy 5th race at Belmont by the name of Uptown Joe, who is making his first start since last December at Gulfstream. Eddie, why the layoff?
That horse had a couple of good races at Belmont last fall. He was second in a couple of nice maiden races on the turf, and went to Gulfstream, and we were real happy with him. But he didn't show up when we ran him in that race at Gulfstream, and I think the turf might have been just a little too firm for him, and it just came out of it a little bit sore. So we just decided to give him some time off and get him back for the summer-fall campaign. So we gave him the time off, and since he's come back, he's done really well in the morning workouts. He's worked really well several times. So he's had a race over the Belmont turf course, and I think it's in great shape. So I think he'll run a big race off the layoff. I think he's pretty ready.
So you think he's ready to fire first off the lengthy layoff this afternoon?
Yeah, I do. I think he will, definitely. I think he'll show up. That's kind of what he wants to do, is go along on the grass, and he'll run a good race without a prep. I think we have him pretty ready, and he ran a good race first out. So I think he fits. There's some horses in there that look strong as well. So it's not an easy maiden race, but I think he belongs.
And Eddie, finally, before we let you go, we had you on the program Wood Memorial morning to talk about Chivarelli, very talented, but light on experience. I thought Chivarelli ran a very creditable 4th that day in the Wood, but I haven't seen him since. Eddie, what's going on with Chivarelli?
Chivarelli didn't come out of the woods real well. He had a few minor issues, so we decided to send him to the farm and give him a little break. So he's still at the farm, actually, in Kentucky, and he's coming back in sometime in July, and we'll get him ready for the fall and winter campaign. But he's a solid horse, and he's a horse worth waiting for. So we want to give him enough time to fully recuperate and look forward to him.
Well, Eddie, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. All the best with Street Girl and Ultimate Shopper in the Bed of Roses. All the best bringing back Uptown Joe in this afternoon's fifth. And we'll look forward to seeing you here at Saratoga very soon.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eddie. Eddie Kenneally, ladies and gentlemen, and we are up to our final break. When we return, Mr. Mark Hennig, as we go to the break, the Grade 1 Vanity at Santa Anita. 17-10 favorite, number 4, Let Faith Arrive. The very close second choice at 9-5, number 3, Grace Hall. So we will take a look at the Vanity to the break. Back with Mark Hennig right after these messages.
And they're off in the Vanity. Magic Union breaks out on top. Grace Hall is moving up. Iotapa wasn't quick out of there, but she's moving up on the inside now to be a part of the Speed Brigade. Scherzinger is now third, racing just outside Grace Hall. The pace appears very moderate. Magic Union is now in fourth. Let Faith Arise fifth, and in between horses, only 3.5 lengths off the lead, and Yahilwa is at the back. Iotapa opens up a length around the first turn. Grace Hall is in second. Scherzinger adjoined third. Magic Union just inside of her. Let Faith Arise has 5 to make up, and Yahilwa's at the back. 6 furlongs from the money, and Iotapa is the boss. Leads by 3/4 of a length to Grace Hall second. Scherzinger in the clear on the outside third. Magic Union has to keep pace fourth. She's followed by Let Faith Arise, 5 lengths off the lead, and 2 in front of Yahilwa. Down the back stretch they go in the Vanity, and Iotapa just cruising along out there, doing it sweetly. In front by a length to Grace Hall second. Scherzinger on the outside in third. Magic Union is in fourth. Let Faith Arise, 4 lengths off the lead. She'll have to go wide, and inside of her, Yahilwa has trailed throughout. Iotapa is the one to beat, 3/8 of a mile to go. Grace Hall hard-ridden, trying to keep pace second. Scherzinger could not do enough in third. She's followed at the rail by Magic Union. Iotapa in control at the top of the stretch. Grace Hall is 2 behind her in second. These two are dominating. Let Faith Arise still 8 off them. They're at the top of the stretch, and Iotapa powerful in front by 3 now. Grace Hall has given it her best, but she is no match as Iotapa is putting on a show in the Vanity Stakes. She's opened up to lead by 7. Iotapa and Joe Talamo romping home to win by about 9. Grace Hall second, Scherzinger third, Let Faith Arise was fourth.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Eddie Kenneally once again for having joined us. And Iotapa off a distant 6th in the Humana Distaff. John Sadler, Joe Talamo romps by 10 over Grace Hall in the Vanity. Our final guest this morning is a young man who has been joining us for many, many years on the program. Later this afternoon, he will run the highly consistent Mary Meadow in the Bed of Roses at Belmont. We welcome in live via telephone, Mr. Mark Hennig. Mark, welcome back to Down the Stretch.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be back.
Nice to have you as always. I mentioned highly consistent. I think that fits Mary Meadow very well. 18 of 20, first, second, or third in her career. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, she's a neat kind of filly. She's kind of a blue-collar filly that took a while to break her maiden. I think it was 11 starts to break her maiden, but she was consistently second or third in those maiden races also. But it seems like once she broke her maiden, it kind of got her over the hump, and she's moved forward with every race since then.
Mark, she has got to be a very sound filly. I mean, here she is. She's only 4 years of age. She's had 20 starts.
Yeah, she's been, knocking on wood, good and sound, and she just thrives. I don't train her real hard. You know, I got into a pattern with her, last fall where I started breezing her 2 weeks in front of her race rather than a week or 6 days in front of the race, and she seemed to really respond to it. And you know, since then we've just kept up with that routine, and other than the time we ran her back quick in February, that's been her routine, and she's responded well to it.
Well, she got a graded stakes win in last in the Vagrancy. As our audience takes a look at it, Mary Meadow, number 2 in here. Mark, talk about this performance, if you would.
It was a great performance. I mean, the race kind of unfolded completely the opposite of the way we saw it on paper and the way we discussed it with Rajiv in the paddock. But you know, he just rode it how it came to him, and we felt like the 2 horses that were in the back of the pack were going to be in front of us, and it all got flip-flopped, but it all worked out. And I think, you know, she always runs well fresh, like she was last time, and coming off the layoff. And you know, this is a little quicker coming back, but I think you know, to me, she seemed like she won with something last time and came out of it strong.
Yeah, she had been away from the Barbara Fritchie in February to this, which was on May 17th. Was that by design to have her nice and fresh for this?
Well, we weren't as necessarily pointing at this, but it was by design to freshen her. We had run her in February. They had the cancellation and a quarantine before the Barbara Fritchie, which put it off for a week, and that's kind of how we ended up, you know, last minute deciding to go take a shot to pick up some black type in the Barbara Fritchie. But it probably wasn't fair to her. We ran her back on short rest, and she, you know, didn't. That was one of those races that broke up her consistency.
Did you expect that type of big effort off the layoff?
I've come to expect her to run well off the layoff, yes. But, I mean, certainly I thought, you know, with Kauai Katie, and I thought it was, you know, we were taking a shot. And we had her cross-entered at Pimlico. We could have run her down at Pimlico on Friday, but the weather looked really shady down there. So, you know, at that point we just decided, let's just take a shot. We looked like we got a good shot to hit the board. You know, we got a little more black type than we were thinking we might.
You mentioned this briefly earlier. Any major concerns about wheeling her back pretty quickly off that big effort in the Vagrancy, and any concerns about stretching out to 7/8?
Certainly there's concern on both aspects. I wouldn't call it major concern, but I think, you know, she does run well fresh, but we're, you know, with the style with we've been training her in the last 9 months for a year, you know, it's been easier to kind of keep her fresh. So I'm not as worried about that. She's acting great and doing well. The 7/8, you know, I think early on in her career was probably at the edge of what she wanted to do, but I think she's really adapted and developed a style that, you know, she's very versatile and can do whatever comes to her. She draws better today being outside, so it doesn't force her hand early, and, you know, she can wait and use that little burst of speed in the stretch.
Before we let you go, Mark, you will be running as well in this afternoon's Grassy Second at Belmont. 7th and last, coming off a 5.5-month vacation. Did she need that race?
I think she definitely needed it, and she also didn't get much of she's one of those fillies that definitely needs a pace setup. She needs to get some speed out there in front of her, and when she does, she punches. And she tried to punch last time, but I felt like she hung a little down the lane. And I may have run her in there had we went into it anticipating that she would probably need the race, because she's one of those fillies that it's a little easier to run her, and she gets a lot more out of a race than she does in her morning workout. She doesn't train exceptionally fast on the dirt, so it's hard to get a good solid works into her. So with that race on the it just kind of came up in the book, and I discussed it with the owner. I said, look, we might need a race, but at least we'll get her going, and she'll probably get more out of it than she would 3 or 4 more works. So that was the intent, and hopefully it comes to fruition today.
Well, Mark, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. All the best with Mary Meadow and as well later, and we'll look forward to seeing you very soon here in Saratoga.
Yeah, it won't be long now. All right, Mark, thank you.
Take care. Mark Hennig, ladies and gentlemen. And we also want to wish local owner Roddy Valente and his partners the best with hot stones in this afternoon's Bed of Roses. All right, time to thank all the folks who helped get this show on the air here at the studios in the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany. Our associate producer, Julie Hoxie, as well as Mick Richards. Back in the control room in Schenectady, Pat Peretta directed, Pete Persico on audio, and thanks to this morning's guests, Art Sherman, Eddie Kenneally, and Mark Hennig. And thanks to our sponsor, Parting Glass Racing, Saratoga's original racing partnership, who finished second with a long shot Kid Blast on Wednesday at Belmont Park. Visit them on the web at partingglassracing.com. And as always, thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. Enjoy this first official weekend of summer. It is supposed to be a glorious weekend weather-wise. Enjoy all the racing action from coast to coast right here at Capitol. Have a terrific upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.